Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Louise Huber begins now.
Good evening. The Prime Minister has flown into Tasmania with his chequebook, officially announcing Macquarie Point as the site of a new stadium, paving the way for our own AFL team. But the highly anticipated event was marred by angry protesters, furious that the major pool of money won't be spent elsewhere.
A frosty reception for our nation's leader as he was shouted out of Hobart. The Prime Minister forced to address disdain from an opposing group during his press conference.
Let's talk about housing, Prime Minister.
I think you've had your say.
Those against the cash splash gate-crashed the announcement, where $240 million in Commonwealth funding was confirmed for the Macquarie Point development.
An urban renewal project like no other that has ever been seen here in Tasmania.
The Prime Minister drove past homeless people in tents and stood over there and talked about spending hundreds of $millions on a stadium.
In a show of bipartisanship, Anthony Albanese walked the desolate site with Tasmania's Premier, pointing to the investment benefits beyond the stadium precinct.
Including affordable housing for essential health workers.
While there's no clear cost breakdown, there's already concerns for how a potential infrastructure blowout would be managed.
I have confidence that the Tasmanian government will be able to get this project right.
The PM also copping criticism from his federal opposition colleagues.
Labor now need to do the other part of what they're supposed to be doing as a government and providing all of these essential services. They've funded the nice-to-haves, but not the must-haves.
Meanwhile, state Labor were nowhere to be seen, instead issuing a statement saying it's always supported the bid for a team, but the stadium shouldn't be conditional on that happening, and it's the wrong priority for Tasmania.
Oh, I feel sorry for Rebecca White. She's just been completely steamrolled by her federal leader.
A long-awaited update from the AFL is expected in the coming days, with the league now ready to formally seek support from the 18 clubs for a 19th licence in the state.
Singing our own song in our own colours and having that aspiration of young Tasmanians.
League boss Gillon McLachlan thanked the government for realising the vision, saying for a club to compete and succeed on the national stage, it needs a home that enables and empowers it to compete from the start. But today's divisive display shows it's a goal not all Tasmanians were chasing. Grace Evans, 7 Tasmania News.
And as we've heard, the predicted announcement has sparked mixed reactions. For some, the project represents broken promises and unnecessary spending that's scant on details. But others say the stadium will open new doors for the state's economy.
A seal of approval from one of our footy greats. Royce Hart scored 369 goals for the Tigers and believes Macquarie Point will kick one for local footy.
The best spot in Australia, not Tasmania, apart from the Sydney Opera House, and it was a disgrace up until now. Now it's good that something's going to be done on.
A view shared in the business community. The construction industry confident it'll create jobs that can also build vital services.
We can build a stadium and we can deliver the 3,100 houses that we need to keep pace with population growth.
Tourism and hospitality officials say it'll help in a way Blunston Arena can't deliver.
It's completely disconnected from the businesses that we want to benefit from that activity.
They're going to go to our cafes, our restaurants, stay in the accommodation venues and stuff where Bellerive Oval's a long way away from.
For others, the news is an insult.
It's a betrayal of the homeless, people who are sleeping in tents and can't afford the rent.
Reconnect with the communities that elected them and expect them to serve the community, not kowtowing to, frankly, the thugs in the AFL.
The promise of social housing not enough to sway sceptics.
I don't believe that it'll happen. The Prime Minister today drove straight past the tents of homeless Tasmanians.
I'd say the state government plucked it out of their arse.
Author Richard Flanagan, who supported an alternative proposal, is worried about a cost blowout.
With closed hospital beds and a worsening housing crisis, and that's what Albo's ulcer has left us with.
The neighbouring RSL having mixed emotions. It wants answers at next month's State Congress.
how big is it going to be, how wide is it going to be, and how long it's going to take to build. I don't think you would accept this lack of information if someone was trying to build a house next door.
The future of the nearby port development and Truth and Reconciliation Park also up in the air.
That work needs to happen immediately because we can't be the country's Antarctic gateway with a second-rate port.
Commits to returning some of our stolen lands so that that land can be an area where we can share our culture and history.
The ferocity of the debate leaving one of the team's most passionate advocates concerned.
Saddens me that it now becomes a symbol of disunity within Tasmania.
John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
Residents in a Prospect housing complex have woken to terrifying scenes when fire tore through a neighbouring property. Authorities are investigating the cause of the blaze, while another fire broke out this afternoon at Beaconsfield.
It's a scene nobody wants to wake up to early on a Saturday morning. Fire ripping through the Prospect Vale unit just after 5:30, with flames bursting through the property's roof.
Couple of bangs and I thought it was a couple of cars on the main road.
Those bangs were an explosion at the unit just metres away. The blaze starting in a bedroom at the back of the property.
When crews arrived, they found the structure fully involved, and it took approximately 30 minutes to bring the fire under control.
I saw all these flashing lights and it was the fire truck and the police.
Neighbours were terrified the resident was trapped inside, but he wasn't on the scene when authorities arrived.
It was a shock because I didn't really know which side, because that side's empty.
It was a lucky escape for the young couple right next door.
When they came out of their homes, the back of this house was fully involved in fire.
While their neighbour's house was destroyed, theirs was largely untouched. Fire investigators on the scene this morning working to build a picture of what happened at the property.
We've used the aerial appliance, we've used thermal imaging and gas detection to determine the cause.
Later this afternoon, another fire destroyed a home at Beaconsfield. A man and his elderly mother were home at the time. She was taken to Launceston General Hospital for observations.
We'll get a fire investigator out. He'll sort through the remains of the structure that's behind us and determine the cause of the fire.
Annie Green, 7 Tasmania News.
It's been revealed that pre-COVID home buyers are reaping the benefits of their investment in Tasmania's capital. New data from PropTrack shows there are no suburbs in Hobart where median house prices are below pre-pandemic levels. Bridgewater saw the biggest 3-year increase, with prices spiking by more than 82%. And locally, North Launceston has returned to the winners list with a big win over Clarence at UTAS Stadium. The home side catching the Roos on the hop in the first quarter, leading by 21 points at the first change. That lead grew to 7 goals by half-time, with the Bombers' pressure around the contest hurting Clarence. Brandon Leary starring up forward, kicking 6 goals for the winners.
Little kick at Leary. Yes, it is. Leary has kicked a goal.
Clarence's efforts also not helped by poor goal kicking. The Bombers scoring their first win of the season, 14-15-99 to 4-14-38. South Hobart have held their nerve to move into the semi-final of the Women's Statewide Cup. Facing an in-form Newtown Eagles, 3 first-half goals saw South Hobart take a healthy advantage at half-time. The Eagles managed to get on the board twice in the second half, but the Roos were too strong.
Westwood playing the 1-2. Well, that might work out as the cross falls into the path of Flies, and Flies chips it over the top for a scrappy goal.
In the Lackaseljack Cup, Devonport defeated Kingborough to move into the final 4. 2 first-half goals setting up the win for the Strikers.
Kingborough trying to recover, but they can't, and he slots it so calmly. Ali Dullo in characteristic style.
Despite a late Lions goal, Devonport held on to win 2-1. There's been an upset in Ulverston with the Kingston Blues taking down Devon by 5 points in the Tasmanian Netball League. While in Launceston, the Northern Hawks have stamped their dominance on the ladder in a top-of-the-table clash with Cripps Waratah.
With both sides unbeaten this season, it was shaping up to be a battle for the ages. Waratah and the Hawks trading goal for goal in a hotly contested first quarter. But it was the North that pulled ahead in the second period, piling on 15 points to Waratah's 9. The Southerners putting up a valiant fight, trying to prevent the Hawks from taking off. It kept the team within 8 points of the ladder leaders by the end of the first half, but it wasn't enough. Consistent 16-point quarters proving too much pressure for Waratah. The Hawks taking the win 62-49. Top scorer of the day went to Hawks co-captain Ashley Mora, netting 35 goals. Meanwhile, Karana went down in flames against the Cavaliers. The Cavs charging ahead early on with a 19 points to 6 first period. Karana never recovered, eventually going down 26 to the Cavs 71. Annie Green, 7 Tasmania News.
The Hobart Chargers sent the Melbourne Tigers to northern Tasmania with their tails between their legs last night. A 24-6 third quarter helped the women's side win 82-51. Kyle Steiner once again showing her value, top scoring with 25 points.
Sets the hands once again. Broomhall down low, doesn't matter. Steiner's going to get a layup off glass. She's got 22.
Meanwhile, 30 points from Jack Jumper Sam McDaniel helped the men win 82-71. Tassie talent Taryn Armstrong will soon be back on Australian shores, but trading the northwest for far north Queensland. ESPN is reporting the 21-year-old has been snapped up by the Cairns Taipans on a 2-year deal. The 6'5" guard has spent the last 2 seasons playing college ball in the US.
Good evening. Mild temperatures around the major centres. Hobart and Launceston both reached 17. Devonport and Burnie atop of 16. Fairly consistent maximum statewide. Smithton, St Helens, Friendly Beaches and Bushy Park all made it to 17. Laiweni, the typical exception, failing to crack double figures. Patchy cloud covered parts of the west, mainly clear for the rest of the state. On the mainland, you'll see a large cloud band is covering much of the east coast. There's also patchy low-level cloud across the coastal parts of WA, SA and Victoria. Looking ahead, a trough is extending from Queensland through New South Wales and will meet head-on with a cold front over the Tasman Sea. We can expect northwesterly winds of up to 30 knots in the southwest during the day. Winds will reach between 15 to 25 knots in the west and south. Strong wind warnings are in place for Sandy Cape right around to Tasman Island. Heating up in Hobart tomorrow, 21 and mostly sunny, also 21 in Richmond and Ouse. Launceston 18 and mostly sunny, cooler heading north, 17 in Devonport and 15 in Deloraine. Burnie, Strawn and King Island all set for rain and highs of 17. And in the east, St Helens and Swansea both 19, Whitemark a top of 18. Showers in the west on Monday, making their way to the north in the morning and south in the afternoon. That rain will continue in the west on Tuesday and there will be some possible morning fog. And showers will extend statewide on Wednesday in the morning before easing later on. On the big map, a high of 26 in Brisbane, 22 in Sydney, cooler in Melbourne 17, 19 in Adelaide, Perth 23 and a sunny 34 in Darwin. Right now it's 12 in Hobart and clear, Launceston 10, mostly clear, and Devonport 11 and clear. And speaking of temperatures, Lou, my red hot Crows are up against your red hot Collingwood tomorrow. Could be a tough day in the office.
Welcome back and bring it on, I reckon, Tom. Thank you for that. That's all your news for this Saturday night. Thank you for joining us. We will see you tomorrow, good or bad. Good night.